The ship descends through a scarlet sky, a fire-wreathed tear in Coruscant's perpetual twilight. Not a starfighter, not a shuttle, but a crude, alien pod, its trajectory impossible, its structural integrity defying all atmospheric friction. Inside, an infant Kal-El coos softly, utterly oblivious to the inferno around him. His Kryptonian cells, nascent and fragile on his dying homeworld, now sing with a symphony of power, fueled by not one, but two suns. Coruscant Prime and its distant twin, a stellar echo that nonetheless bathes the Ecumenopolis in a subtle, unseen energy. The Star Wars galaxy, obsessed with the Force and technological warfare, has no idea what just landed on its surface. The pod slices through layer after layer of the cityscape, a streaking comet ignored by most, mistaken for a falling debris chunk by others. It bypasses orbital defenses, not by stealth, but by sheer, unprecedented velocity and structural resilience. Its impact isn't a cataclysmic explosion, but a deep, jarring thud far below the surface, in one of the forgotten industrial sectors where the air is thick with ozone and the hum of ancient machinery. A humble mechanic, Ilara, her hands perpetually stained with synth grease, is on a late-night salvage run, scavenging parts from defunct automated factories. The tremor rattles her bones, and a faint, ethereal glow pulses from a collapsed section of a durasteel wall. Cautiously, she approaches, her blaster pistol's lamp cutting through the gloom. What she finds isn't a crashed starship, but a strange metallic shell twisted and fused into the durasteel, a miracle of survival. A small hatch, miraculously still functional, hisses open, revealing a soft inner lining and a baby, wailing. The infant's cries are not weak, but filled with an almost impossible vitality. His skin, already smooth and impossibly flawless, seems to absorb the ambient light, giving him an ethereal glow even in the dimness. Ilara, childless and living a life of quiet desperation, feels an immediate, inexplicable pull. She carefully lifts the child, noting the strange, vibrant blue of his eyes, the dark hair. He is unlike any human, Twi'lek or Zabrak, she has ever seen. The pod itself, too alien and too tough to dismantle, is quickly swallowed by the city's ceaseless entropy, buried under shifting industrial waste, its secrets intact. Ilara names him Kal. She hides his true origin, weaving a tale of finding him abandoned, an orphan of the endless Coruscant underlevels. She teaches him basic galactic standard, provides for him as best she can, a single mother in a galaxy that cares little for the forgotten. But Kal is not like other children. He grows at an alarming rate, his strength becoming evident in accidental bursts. Toys crushed in his grip, durasteel conduits bent when he stumbles. He learns to suppress it, to move carefully, to mimic normal human fragility. Yet the energy of the two suns, filtered and diffused through miles of Coruscant City, continues to saturate his cells, a silent, unseen evolution. The Force, a ubiquitous yet often subtle presence on Coruscant, senses him. Not as a disturbance, not as a dark side taint, but as an anomaly, a vibrant, unclassifiable energy signature that baffles the Jedi Temple's most sensitive practitioners. Yoda himself feels a flicker, a ripple in the cosmic ocean that is not of the Force, yet profoundly impactful. This anomaly, this growing power, is still contained within the quiet life of a child. But Coruscant is a planet of billions, a teeming metropolis where the smallest disturbance can spiral into chaos and where the most innocuous event can catch the eye of the powerful. The stage is set. If you love watching legends clash across universes, subscribe for epic battles. The war is just beginning. Soon, the quiet strength of the boy will be tested, and the galaxy will learn the meaning of true power. Years bled into decades, and Kal grew not just in stature, but in the disciplined control of his burgeoning abilities. Ilara's lessons in humility and restraint were deeply ingrained. He was an anomaly in a galaxy defined by the force and technological might, a living enigma walking among countless species. He learned to temper his super strength, to move with a calculated softness that belied the monumental power in his limbs. His X-ray vision, initially a terrifying, uncontrollable flood of information, became a precise tool, allowing him to perceive the intricate workings of Coruscant's infrastructure, the hidden passages, the flow of energy conduits, and even the biological rhythms of its inhabitants beneath layers of durasteel and synth flesh. Superspeed was reserved for moments of true solitude. Blurring through abandoned sublevels, experiencing the city in a way no being, not even the fastest speeder, ever could. His hearing picked up conversations across entire city blocks, the distant thrum of starships in orbit, and the almost imperceptible hum of the Jedi Temple's vast power generators. Coruscant itself was a crucible. The endless layers of the city were a constant challenge, forcing Cal to navigate a labyrinth of social strata and architectural marvels. He worked alongside Ilara, a mechanic skilled in deciphering the city's ancient tech, but he always felt an underlying current of difference. He observed the Jedi from afar, their lightsabers cutting through the darkness of criminal activity, their serene mastery of the Force a stark contrast to his own raw, unexplainable might. He saw the Republic's gleaming cruisers, the imposing presence of the Senate, and the creeping shadow of political maneuvering that even a humble mechanic like Ilara would often grumble about. One sweltering Coruscant cycle, deep in the lower levels, a colossal power conduit, weakened by years of neglect and aggravated by seismic tremors from a distant planetary core drill, began to rupture. The energy surge was catastrophic, an invisible wave of pure plasma threatening to engulf entire residential blocks. Alarms shrieked across the sector, but the emergency services were hours away, navigating the choked traffic lanes of the upper city. Panic erupted. Dwellers scrambled, but the sheer volume of output from the failing conduit meant a flash fire was imminent, threatening millions. Cal, working nearby, heard the groaning metal, saw the invisible heat shimmer through the durasteel walls with his telescopic vision, and felt the tremors of destructive energy with his enhanced senses. Ilara was directly in the path of the projected blast. Without thought, years of training and restraint evaporated. This was not a moment for subtlety. He moved. Blurring faster than any speeder bike, faster than even a trained Jedi could react, Cal became a streak of motion. He didn't fly, not yet, not intentionally, but he leaped, bounding across collapsing platforms, his movements a controlled explosion of power. He reached the primary rupture point, a gaping maw in the conduit where raw energy pulsed outward like a malevolent heart. The heat was immense, enough to vaporize anything organic in seconds, but Cal felt only a warmth, a reinforcement of the twin sun's energy within him. A wave of pure plasma erupted, consuming a fleeing transport. Cal instinctively threw himself in front of the next wave, arms outstretched. The plasma hit him, not splashing or burning, but absorbing into his form, a brief, blinding flash. He strained, a guttural sound escaping him, and then, with a monumental, focused effort, he pushed. He wasn't simply blocking. He was attempting to redirect the destructive flow. His muscles flexed, not with pain, but with the immense effort of sheer physical will against uncontrolled energy. The ground beneath his feet cracked, durasteel plates buckling and tearing under the strain of his resistance. He saw the faces of the terrified citizens, saw Ilara frozen in shock. He couldn't stop the conduit, but he could contain it, bottleneck the flow. With another Herculean effort, he ripped massive sections of already stressed durasteel from the surrounding structure, shaping them with impossible speed and precision. He molded the metal like clay, into a makeshift containment shell around the rupture, focusing the plasma's immense pressure inward, forcing it to consume itself in a self-sustaining, self-limiting vortex of energy, rather than exploding outward. The scream of metal and dying energy was deafening, but it subsided, replaced by the stunned silence of the onlookers. A glowing, contained sphere of raw power pulsed within the twisted metal Cal had shaped, slowly dissipating as the conduit finally powered down. Cal stood amidst the wreckage, breathing heavily but unharmed. His clothes were singed, but his skin was pristine. The silence was broken by the distant wail of Republic emergency vehicles, now making their way to the scene. But they were too late for the initial disaster, only arriving to witness its impossible aftermath. The residents whispered, pointing, fear and awe mingling in their eyes. A single being had done what no fleet, no Jedi could have done in time. A fraction of his true power had been revealed, a glimpse of the impossible. The galaxy was about to take notice. The aftermath of the power conduit incident resonated like a shock wave through Coruscant's lower levels, echoing even up to the gleaming spires of the Republic Executive Building and the Jedi Temple. Witnesses, initially too terrified to speak, soon flooded comm channels with impossible tales. A blur of speed, a man who stopped a plasma cascade with bare hands, who bent durasteel like a child's toy. Republic security forces, accustomed to assessing blaster damage and force-related incidents, found themselves confronting physical evidence that defied every known engineering and biological principle. The contained energy sphere, the precisely reshaped, hyper-compressed durasteel around the conduit rupture, it was not the work of technology nor of the Force as they understood it. The Jedi Council, already subtly aware of an unusual presence on Coruscant through the Force, now focused their attention with an urgent intensity. Master Yoda's meditations had often brushed against a strange, vibrant absence, yet presence, a being whose energy signature was not a dark side void nor a light side beacon, but something other. Now, that otherness had manifested with undeniable force. Reports of the impossible man reached their ears. Knights were dispatched to the lower levels, blending in, gathering intelligence. They returned with accounts that bordered on myth. Cal, after ensuring Alara's safety, had retreated into the shadows, but the sheer scale of his intervention made anonymity impossible. He was a ghost in the machine, but a very loud one. The Republic Security Bureau, pressured by the Senate, initiated a covert search. Chancellor Palpatine, with his network of informants and his profound sensitivity to unusual power dynamics, took a keen interest. He saw a chess piece of immense, unprecedented value, or a potential rival to be eliminated. It wasn't long before Cal was cornered, not by a squad of stormtroopers, which had not yet fully formed into the Imperial Legions of the future, but by a detachment of the Coruscant Guard, bolstered by a small team of Jedi Shadow agents. They found him attempting to slip through a derelict maintenance tunnel, guided by his enhanced vision. Their approach was swift, silent, and coordinated, designed to overwhelm a Force-sensitive or a seasoned criminal. "Stop right there!" Commander Fox's voice boomed, amplified by his helmet's vocoder. Red-armored Coruscant guardsmen fanned out, their DC-15A blaster rifles locked onto Cal. Behind them, 2 Jedi Shadows, their lightsabers still dormant, stood ready. Cal froze, not from fear, but from a lifetime of Alara's warnings about drawing attention. He lifted his hands, a gesture of compliance. "I mean no harm," his voice, calm and steady, carried through the tunnel. "Harm was done, citizen." One of the Jedi Shadows, a stern Togruta named Kadara, stated, her leku twitching. "Unregistered power discharge, massive property damage, unsanctioned intervention. You will come with us to the temple." Cal lowered his hands slightly. "I was helping people. Your methods were Excessive, the second Jedi shadow, a Zabrak with a scarred face, countered. Such power cannot be left unchecked. Before Cal could respond, one of the guardsmen, nervous and trigger-happy, fired a warning shot. The blaster bolt, superheated plasma, streaked towards Cal's chest. It hit him with a dull thud, not sparking off his skin, but splattering against him like water on a reinforced shield. The energy dissipated harmlessly, leaving not even a scorch mark. A gasp went through the guard. The Jedi Shadow's eyes widened. Kadara ignited her emerald lightsaber with a snap hiss. The Zabrak followed suit, his crimson blade humming. This was not a bluff. This was not a trick. "He's immune to blasters," Commander Fox whispered, disbelief lacing his voice. Cal felt a surge of adrenaline, but also a profound weariness. This was the moment. He had to show them. "Please," he said, taking a step forward. "I am not a threat." Kadara saw his movement as aggression. She lunged, her lightsaber a green arc aimed at his chest, a strike that could cleave durasteel. Cal did not dodge. He simply stood, raising his arm defensively. The blade connected. There was no sizzle of burning flesh, no severing of limb. Instead, a grating, high-pitched screech filled the tunnel as if the very air was protesting. The lightsaber blade, meant to cut through anything, bounced off Cal's forearm, sending sparks showering wildly. Kadara was thrown backward by the unprecedented impact, her arm numb from the recoil, her eyes wide with shock. The Zabrak Jedi, acting on instinct, thrust his hand forward, unleashing a powerful force push. The invisible wave of kinetic energy, capable of sending a starfighter careening, slammed into Cal. He braced, his feet digging into the cracked durasteel floor, but he was pushed back, skidding several meters. He wasn't harmed, but the force had moved him, a sensation unlike any he had ever experienced. It was an external pressure, an invisible hand that, while not damaging, was undeniably effective. Cal looked at them, a flicker of understanding in his eyes. Their power was different. "I understand you need to confirm," he said. Then, with a burst of movement that made him almost invisible, he snatched the two ignited lightsabers from the bewildered Jedi. The blades, humming in his hands, were hot, but he felt no burn. He extinguished them with practiced ease, having observed the Jedi for years. He then slowly, deliberately, placed the hilts on the ground between them. "I could have hurt you," he stated, his voice now carrying a gravitas that transcended his humble upbringing. "But I will not. I seek only peace, but I will not be taken." The guardsmen were stunned. The Jedi were bewildered. They had faced Sith Lords, battled entire droid armies, but nothing had prepared them for a being who could shrug off blaster fire and lightsaber strikes, and whose physical might allowed him to disarm two trained Jedi Masters without a single aggressive move. The initial threat assessment had just been catastrophically underestimated. Coruscant, the heart of the Republic, had just encountered its first true alien god. The encounter in the lower levels sent shockwaves directly to the Jedi High Council. Kadara and the Zabrak Master's reports, meticulously detailed, were almost unbelievable. A being immune to blasters, whose skin deflected lightsaber blades, and who could disarm trained Jedi with casual ease and supernatural speed. Master Yoda, sitting in quiet contemplation, finally voiced what many were thinking. Unusual this presence is, not of the Force, yet great power it possesses. Mace Windu, ever pragmatic, studied the holo recording of the incident. He did not harm them. He demonstrated restraint, despite his overwhelming advantage. But such power, it cannot be ignored, especially on Coruscant. Ki-Adi-Mundi added, "If he is not of the Force, how do we even begin to understand him, let alone defend against him? Should he turn hostile?" The concept of a being beyond the Force, Yet possessing abilities that dwarfed many Force sensitives was a profound challenge to Jedi philosophy. Their understanding of the galaxy, of power, of balance, was suddenly incomplete. They dispatched additional teams, more senior Jedi Masters this time, not for confrontation, but for observation and, if possible, dialogue. Meanwhile, news of the Coruscant anomaly began to leak, albeit slowly, through clandestine channels. Criminal syndicates, always looking for an edge, dispatched their own scouts, eager to identify this new variable. Senatorial offices buzzed with panicked murmurs. The thought of a being who could single-handedly defy the Republic's entire security apparatus was terrifying. Palpatine, however, saw opportunity in the chaos. He initiated a whisper campaign, subtly amplifying the fear, painting the Kryptonian as an unknown, uncontrollable threat. He understood that fear of the unknown could be weaponized, pushing the Senate towards granting him emergency powers, ostensibly to deal with such unprecedented dangers. Cal, now a legend in the making, found himself an involuntary fugitive, hiding in plain sight. He observed the increased Jedi presence, the subtly altered patrol routes of the Coruscant Guard. He used his telescopic vision to watch the Jedi Temple, observing their movements, their routines. He learned their meditation postures, the precise forms of their lightsaber combat. He began to understand the nuances of the Force, not by feeling it directly, but by observing its physical manifestations, the way it allowed Jedi to leap impossible distances, to anticipate attacks, to influence minds. He realized his power was different, raw and physical, yet potentially capable of achieving similar results through brute force or incredible speed. One cycle, while seeking refuge in a rarely used orbital repair dock, a vast, hollowed-out asteroid now integrated into Coruscant's extended infrastructure, Cal encountered a probe droid. Not a Republic model, but a sleek, sinister design he didn't recognize, adorned with symbols he'd only seen in whispers. Separatist insignia. The droid, equipped with advanced sensor arrays, quickly pinpointed his location. Its optical sensors flared, and it relayed his presence. Before Cal could react, a squad of Magna Guards, their electrostaffs crackling with energy, descended upon the dock. These were General Grievous's elite, brought in for a covert operation, likely reconnaissance for a future attack on Coruscant, or perhaps to test the Republic's reaction to the Coruscant anomaly. They were emotionless, relentless, and formidable opponents even for Jedi Knights. The lead Magna Guard, its metallic voice cold and synthesized, activated a comms link. Target confirmed. Engaging for capture or elimination. Do not damage beyond retrieval parameters. Cal sighed. Can't I just have one quiet day? He muttered, more to himself than to his attackers. He'd observed the Magna Guards in Holo News reports. Their speed and staff-wielding skill were impressive. But he had also witnessed the limitations of droids against the organic unpredictability of Force users. He had no Force, only himself. The Magna Guards attacked in a coordinated swarm, their electro-staffs blurring, aiming for joint weaknesses, for vulnerable points. Cal moved, a graceful dance of evasion and parry. He wasn't using speed to escape, but to control the engagement. He caught an electro-staff mid-swing, the crackling energy shocking his hand with a painful tingle. A new sensation. It wasn't incapacitating, but it was enough to make him realize that energy weapons, while not piercing him, could still deliver kinetic and electrical shock. He immediately adapted, adjusting his grip, twisting the staff from the Magna Guard's grasp. The droid lunged again, but Cal, using the stolen staff, parried its attack, then swung the staff back, not with finesse, but with the force of a battering ram. The Magna Guard's duranium plating crumpled inward, its optical sensor exploding with a shower of sparks, before it crashed against a wall, utterly destroyed. Another Magna Guard leaped, its staff arcing downward. Cal met it with his bare fist. The impact resonated through the dock, a metallic clang that vibrated through the structure. The Magna Guard's arm snapped at the elbow joint, its weapon flying. Cal then grabbed the droid, not gently, but with a sudden burst of strength, and hurled it across the vast space. The Magna Guard became a projectile, smashing through a heavy blast door with a deafening roar, leaving a silhouette of twisted metal. He was testing his limits, discovering new applications for his powers. His super hearing picked up the frantic calm traffic of the remaining Magna Guards, recalculating their tactical algorithms, struggling to comprehend a being who could withstand their weaponry and dismantle their advanced units with raw physical power. The orbital repair dock, a silent testament to galactic engineering, became a chaotic arena. Cal moved through it, a whirlwind of speed and strength, punching, deflecting, throwing, transforming the droids into scrap metal. He didn't just fight them, he utterly overwhelmed them, demonstrating a level of individual combat prowess that few in the galaxy could match. The Jedi's dilemma intensified. The criminals of Coruscant grew wary. And Palpatine's schemes took on a new, darker dimension. The galactic chaos was just beginning. The destruction of the Magna Guard squad in the orbital repair dock, though swift and decisive, was not without its strategic implications. The Separatists, reeling from the loss of elite droids and the failure to capture the Coruscant anomaly, redoubled their intelligence efforts. General Grievous himself was briefed, a growl of frustration rumbling in his metallic throat as he watched the holovids of his Magna Guards being systematically dismantled by an unarmed organic. He saw a challenge, a potential worthy opponent, and a strategic asset he either needed to secure or utterly annihilate. Meanwhile, the Jedi Council's internal debates escalated. The Magna Guard incident, independently verified by Republic intelligence, confirmed the sheer, unbridled physical superiority of Cal. He wasn't just lightsaber-proof, he was a walking, talking weapon of mass destruction who seemed to operate on a different set of universal laws. He stopped a dozen Magna Guards single-handedly, Master Windu stated, arms crossed, with no force, no training. A living weapon he is, Yoda mused, his eyes distant. Too powerful to ignore, too independent to control, a wild card in this war. The Jedi, custodians of peace and balance, now faced an existential question. How do they integrate or contain a being whose power surpasses theirs in many ways, yet who embodies no detectable connection to the Force? Their traditional methods of assessment, negotiation, or even combat seemed inadequate. They sent out feelers, subtle Force emanations meant to draw him out, to open a line of communication. But Cal, still wary, still committed to Alara's warnings, remained elusive, observing their attempts from afar with his enhanced senses. Chancellor Palpatine, however, was far less concerned with Jedi philosophy and far more with power. The reports of Cal's capabilities thrilled him. Such raw, untamed power, if subtly guided, could be forged into the ultimate instrument for his emerging empire. Or, if uncontrollable, it could be used to further destabilize the Republic, paving the way for his ascension. He put his most trusted agents on the task, not just to track Cal, but to subtly manipulate public opinion, amplifying the fear, sowing discord between the Jedi and the Senate regarding how to handle this alien threat. The strategic conflict was now multifaceted. The Jedi sought understanding, the Separatists sought capture or elimination, and Palpatine sought control. Cal, caught in the middle, began to feel the immense weight of the galaxy's attention. He realized his actions, no matter how benevolent, had consequences that rippled far beyond the immediate save. One of Palpatine's earliest and most cunning agents, Director Armand Izard of Republic Intelligence, devised a trap. Knowing that Cal, despite his power, had a strong moral compass and a deep instinct to protect, Izard orchestrated a false flag operation. A civilian transport, loaded with humanitarian aid bound for a separatist besieged world, was subtly sabotaged to appear as if it were malfunctioning and crashing directly into a densely populated Coruscant sector. The emergency beacon was designed to broadcast a specific frequency that Cal, with his super hearing, was known to detect. Cal, hidden in the perpetual twilight of Coruscant's industrial canyons, heard the distress signal. Not just the official emergency frequency, but the terrified whispers of the passengers, the groaning of the ship's failing hyperdrive core, the subtle whine of its engines dying. He saw, with his telescopic vision, the burning engines, the uncontrolled descent towards a teeming civilian sector. It was a mirror image of the power conduit disaster, but on a far grander, more immediate scale. He moved without hesitation. This time he didn't just leap. Propelled by sheer force of will and the twin suns' energy, he launched himself skyward. It wasn't elegant flight, not yet the soaring grace of his future self, but a series of impossible, air-shattering bounds that carried him hundreds of meters at a time, rocketing upwards through Coruscant's congested air traffic lanes. Starfighters swerved to avoid him, their pilots screaming curses and reporting unknown anomalies. He intercepted the plummeting transport, a colossal vessel designed to carry thousands of tons of cargo. Its nose was already burning, threatening to explode. Cal hit the ship with the force of a meteor, not to destroy it, but to slow it. His hands, braced against its hull, glowed faintly from the immense friction and kinetic energy. He dug his heels into the metallic surface, using his raw strength to act as a living brake. The ship shuddered violently, protesting against this impossible resistance. Metal shrieked, passengers inside were thrown about, but the trajectory shifted. He began to guide the ship, using his immense strength to subtly alter its angle of descent, aiming for one of Coruscant's vast, uninhabited energy reclamation fields, a desolate, often ignored expanse of automated waste processing units and deep chasms designed for containing industrial runoff. It was a dangerous maneuver, requiring precision that seemed impossible for a single being. He exerted force on the port side, then the starboard, acting as a human rudder, controlling the ship's descent, battling against its uncontrolled momentum. Then the ambush sprang. Director Izard, expecting Cal's intervention, had prepared. 3 stealth fighters, experimental models designed by CNR Fleet Systems, shimmered into existence from cloaking devices, their laser cannons already charging. They weren't aiming at Cal, but at the transport itself, specifically its already damaged engine block. The goal wasn't to kill Cal directly, but to overwhelm him, to force him to choose between saving the ship and defending himself, or, failing that, to allow the ship's destruction to be pinned on him. Target identified. Izard's voice crackled over a secure channel to the pilots. Eliminate the variable. Ensure collateral damage is maximized. The first laser blasts streaked towards the transport's main engine. Cal, still using every ounce of his strength to slow the colossal vessel, saw the incoming fire with his peripheral vision. He couldn't move the ship fast enough. In a desperate, split-second decision, he pushed off the transport, launching himself directly into the path of the incoming lasers. He became a living shield, absorbing the superheated energy blasts. The impact felt like a million stinging needles, each one attempting to pierce him, but his skin held. He grit his teeth, a low growl escaping him. He then retaliated. With a blur of motion, he grabbed one of the incoming laser bolts out of the air, not deflecting it, but catching its visible energy stream, wrenching its trajectory and flinging it back at the stealth fighter that fired it. The concentrated energy, now propelled by his own strength, tore through the fighter's wing, sending it spiraling out of control. The remaining 2 fighters, pilots momentarily stunned by the impossible feat, opened fire again, a concentrated volley. Cal, still in midair, spun, creating a vortex of motion. He didn't use the force, he used air pressure, whipping up a gale-force wind that buffeted the fighters, disrupting their aim. He then flew towards them, a comet of muscle and will. The pilots, trained for combat against starships, not invulnerable men, panicked. Before they could react, Cal slammed into the lead fighter, not with a destructive blow, but with a precise, targeted impact that disabled its engines without detonating its fuel cells. He repeated the maneuver with the third. The transport, slowed enough by his initial efforts, finally scraped into the energy reclamation field, gouging massive furrows in the ground, but remaining largely intact. The stealth fighters, now crippled, tumbled harmlessly. Cal landed beside the transport, breathing heavily, but victorious. He had saved millions. But he had also exposed himself to a galaxy now scrambling to understand and react to his presence. The faction responses were converging, and the stakes of this unique war were about to escalate beyond anything Coruscant had ever known. The rescue of the civilian transport, caught on thousands of holocams and broadcast across the galaxy, ignited a furious debate. On one hand, Cal was hailed as a savior, a legend of unimaginable power. On the other, the Republic Senate, fueled by Palpatine's insidious rhetoric and Isad's manufactured evidence, branded him an unregistered, unauthorized, and potentially hostile entity. The Jedi Council, having observed the incident with a mixture of awe and apprehension, was pushed into a corner. They acknowledged his benevolence but struggled with the implications of his existence. Their appeals for caution and communication were increasingly drowned out by demands for action. Palpatine, seizing the moment, delivered a chilling address to the Senate. He spoke of new threats, unforeseen powers that defied the Republic's very foundations. He argued that the Jedi, with their ancient ways, were ill-equipped to handle such a singular force. This was a critical step in his long game, subtly eroding faith in the Jedi while consolidating executive power. He secretly ordered the activation of Project Chimera, a clandestine program designed to develop countermeasures against targets of immense individual power, specifically with Cal in mind. Cal, weary of constant evasion, decided to engage. He could not stand by while the people he protected were turned against him by fear and misinformation. He sought a direct confrontation, not for battle, but for clarity. He flew, truly flew this time, not through impossible leaps, but with a controlled, effortless ascent towards the Jedi Temple. His flight was a spectacle, a blue and red blur against Coruscant's endless sky, breaking sound barriers without a single starship thruster. His arrival at the temple was equally dramatic. He didn't crash. He landed gently on the highest spire, a silent challenge to the Jedi Masters within. The temple's security systems flared, alarms wailing, but no weapon could stop a being who absorbed laser fire. The Jedi High Council, assembled in emergency session, felt his presence. "He is here," Mace Windu stated, lightsaber at the ready. "He means to provoke, or to speak, perhaps," Yoda countered, his gaze fixed on the central window overlooking the spire. "A direct approach, this is." They met him in the central courtyard, a formidable array of Jedi Masters, Mace Windu, Ki-Adi-Mundi, Plo Koon, Shak Ti, Agan Kolar, and even Grandmaster Yoda. Their lightsabers ignited, a kaleidoscope of deadly energy against the twilight sky, bathing the courtyard in a dangerous glow. This was a statement of intent, a display of the Republic's greatest champions. Cal landed softly, his cape billowing gently around him. He looked at the array of legendary warriors, their faces grim, their power palpable through the Force, even to his non-Force sensitive senses. "I came to talk," he said, his voice resonating with sincerity. "To explain." Mace Windu stepped forward, his purple blade humming. "Your actions speak louder than words, alien. You defy our laws, break our technology, and wield power we do not understand. You represent a threat." "I saved a transport carrying thousands," Cal countered, his gaze unwavering. I contained a power surge that would have vaporized entire sectors. I seek to protect. Yet your methods caused widespread panic and destabilized the Republic's sense of security, Ki-Adi-Mundi observed, his blue blade steady. Such raw power cannot exist without oversight. The standoff was electric. Two distinct philosophies, two forms of ultimate power, clashed without a single blow struck, but the underlying tension was immense. Then, the trap sprung. Palpatine, having foreseen Cal's likely move, had tipped off Count Dooku, subtly steering the Separatist leader to conduct a surgical strike on the very Jedi Temple, using the distraction of Cal's presence. Suddenly, the sky above the temple filled with advanced Separatist gunships, not typical HMP gunships, but sleek, modified models bristling with experimental energy cannons. Leading them was a personal shuttle, from which emerged Count Dooku, accompanied by two of his elite dark acolytes, former Jedi Knights seduced to the dark side. This was a surgical, precise assault aimed at decapitating the Jedi Council. A convenient distraction, Jedi. Dooku's voice, amplified and dripping with disdain, boomed across the courtyard. While you argue with your new pet, the true war reaches your doorstep. The gunships opened fire, not at Cal, but at the temple's defenses, sending turbo laser bolts scorching towards the ancient walls. Dooku and his acolytes leapt from the shuttle, lightsabers ignited, heading directly for the council chambers. The courtyard erupted into chaos. Jedi Knights and Masters, who had been on perimeter duty, rushed to intercept Dooku's forces. Cal, witnessing the sudden, violent escalation, understood immediately. This was a diversion, expertly orchestrated. The Jedi, for all their power, were now divided, forced to defend their home against a concerted assault. "They're attacking the temple," he yelled, turning to Mace Windu. "This is not my doing." Windu, ever the warrior, saw the immediate threat. His tactical mind instantly shifted. "Your explanation can wait, alien. Now is the time for action." Cal didn't hesitate. His primary directive, forged in the fires of his adopted mother's lessons, was to protect the innocent. He launched himself into the sky, a red and blue blur against the incoming Separatist fire. The turbo laser bolts, designed to crack starship hulls, impacted against him, still not piercing but creating incredible concussive force. He absorbed it, pushing through the barrage, ignoring the pain. He targeted the lead gunship, its forward cannons spewing green energy. With a roar that vibrated through the very air, he smashed into its cockpit, not with an elegant strike, but with the raw, focused power of a meteor. The durasteel crumpled like flimsy foil, the cockpit exploding inward, rendering the gunship uncontrollable. It spiraled, crashing into a lower plaza, erupting in a ball of fire. The other gunships, their pilots stunned, shifted their fire to him, hoping to overwhelm him with sheer volume. Cal became a whirlwind. He flew through the volleys, a living shield for the temple, using his heat vision to carve precise holes in the gunships' hulls, detonating their internal systems. He caught incoming rockets out of the air, redirecting them back at their launchers. He punched through a gunship's wing, tearing it clean off, sending the vessel careening. Meanwhile, in the courtyard, the Jedi were engaged in desperate lightsaber duels. Mace Windu, Agent Kola, and Shak Ti were locked in combat with Dooku and his dark acolytes, their blades clashing in a symphony of power. Yoda, however, paused, his ancient eyes fixed on the sky. He watched Cal, a single figure of immense power, dismantling an entire squadron of Separatist gunships. "A protector, he is," Yoda whispered, a flicker of grudging respect in his voice. "And a shield." The skies above the Jedi Temple became a canvas of destruction and heroism. Cal, single-handedly, was turning the tide of the aerial assault. But Dooku's ground forces were making headway, penetrating the temple's upper levels. The battle had escalated from a tense standoff to a full-scale assault, and Cal, the Coruscant anomaly, was squarely in the middle, rewriting the rules of galactic warfare with every impossible feat. The aerial assault on the Jedi Temple transformed from a strategic Separatist strike into an unmitigated disaster for Count Dooku, all thanks to the singular, overwhelming intervention of Cal. He was a living typhoon, an airborne battering ram, reducing gunships to twisted scrap metal and sending them plummeting into Coruscant's lower levels. Explosions rocked the cityscape, each one a testament to the Kryptonian's destructive power, unleashed in defense of those who had sought to contain him. Pilots abandoned their craft in a panic, their advanced training useless against a being who laughed off their most potent weapons. Within minutes, the once formidable Separatist squadron was utterly annihilated, not by an armada of Republic starfighters, but by one man. On the ground, the Jedi Masters, locked in their brutal lightsaber duels, could feel the shift in the battle above. The relentless rain of turbo laser fire ceased, replaced by the ominous sounds of crashing wreckage. Mace Windu, parrying a savage blow from Count Dooku, glanced skyward. The sight of Cal hovering defiantly amidst the lingering smoke, his figure silhouetted against the burning remnants of a Separatist gunship, sent a jolt through him. This was not a power to be dismissed. "Your gambit has failed, Dooku," Windu roared, pressing his attack. "Your forces are broken." Dooku, however, merely sneered, his red lightsaber a blur against Windu's purple. "A temporary setback, Master Windu. The true lesson is for you. Your Republic relies on unquantifiable, uncontrollable variables. A dangerous path indeed." Cal, having cleared the skies, descended like an avenging angel, landing in the courtyard with a thud that cracked the permacrete. His eyes, burning with a fierce resolve, swept across the dueling Jedi and their attackers. He saw the dark side energy emanating from Dooku and his acolytes, not with foresight, but with an intuitive understanding of malevolence, a sense he had cultivated on Earth and which still guided him. He was not a Jedi, but he instinctively understood the principle of protecting life. He focused on Dooku's acolytes first, recognizing them as extensions of the Count's malevolence. One acolyte, a towering warrior wielding a twin-bladed saber, was locked in a brutal contest with Shaak Ti. Cal moved with a speed that startled even the Jedi. He didn't use an elaborate technique. He simply ran. He hit the acolyte like a hyperdrive slug, a focused, physical impact that sent the armored figure flying, their lightsaber ripped from their grip. The acolyte smashed into a temple pillar with such force that the ancient durasteel groaned, leaving a deep indentation before the warrior slumped, unconscious. The second acolyte, engaged with Argent-Kola, saw Cal's devastating intervention. He snarled, abandoning Kola to unleash a concentrated force lightning attack directly at Cal. Azure bolts of pure dark side energy crackled, streaking towards him. Cal did not flinch. He absorbed the lightning, the crackling energy washing over him, a painful but not debilitating sensation. The heat and kinetic energy tingled, but his cells metabolized it, reinforcing his twin sun aura. He then retaliated with his own energy, his heat vision. A crimson beam erupted from his eyes, not a focused, destructive burst, but a precisely aimed, wide-arc discharge that melted the ground around the acolyte's feet, forcing the Dark Jedi to leap backward in alarm, breaking his concentration. The momentary distraction was all Argent-Kola needed. With a swift, elegant movement, Kola disarmed the acolyte and then incapacitated him with a force stun. All eyes now turned to Count Dooku, who stood alone against Mace Windu, his face a mask of fury. Dooku was powerful, a master of Form 2 Makashi, but even he could not withstand the combined might of multiple Jedi Masters. And now, Cal was there, an unquantifiable force. "This is not your fight, alien," Dooku hissed, his lightsaber snapping towards Cal. You understand nothing of the Force, nothing of this galaxy's destiny." "I understand tyranny," Cal responded, his voice low, filled with a righteous anger. "And I understand evil when I see it." Dooku unleashed a torrent of Force powers. Objects from the courtyard, statues, benches, debris, were ripped from the ground and hurled at Cal with immense telekinetic force. Cal stood his ground, letting the objects smash against his body, shattering harmlessly around him. He then clapped his hands together, not a Force attack, but a purely physical sonic clap that created a shock wave. The air itself shrieked, buffeting Dooku, momentarily staggering him and disrupting his concentration. Taking advantage of Dooku's momentary disorientation, Mace Windu pressed his assault, driving the Count backward. Cal, seeing the opening, decided to end the duel with his own unique method. He flew. Not just a leap, but a controlled, sustained flight, launching himself directly at Dooku. He became a human missile, closing the distance in an instant. Dooku, sensing the raw physical threat, recoiled. He raised his lightsaber defensively, expecting a direct physical attack. Cal didn't attack with his fists. Instead, using his microscopic vision, he precisely targeted the small, intricate mechanisms within Dooku's lightsaber hilt. With a burst of focused heat vision, he melted the delicate power conduits inside, causing the red blade to flicker and die with a dying hum. Dooku, disarmed and shocked, glared at Cal, then at his now useless hilt. He was vulnerable. Before Windu could strike a finishing blow, Dooku, a master of cunning, quickly formed a powerful Force repulse, pushing all nearby Jedi and Cal back. With a final, furious glare, he summoned his personal solar sailor and retreated, escaping into the chaotic Coruscant sky. The battle was won, but Dooku had escaped, leaving behind a profound change in the galactic power dynamic. The Jedi Council looked at Cal, their lightsabers now extinguished, their faces a mixture of exhaustion and profound respect. He had saved the temple, fought alongside them, and defeated Dooku's forces in ways they couldn't comprehend. The cultural collision was stark. Ancient mystical warriors witnessing their enemy's defeat by a being of pure physical might, a power that defied their entire worldview. The consequences were clear. The Republic now had a new, immensely powerful protector, one who operated outside the Force, outside their laws, and outside their understanding. The galaxy would never look at a single warrior the same way again. The battle intensifies. Like and subscribe to witness what happens next. The aftermath of the Jedi Temple defense reshaped galactic perspectives with blinding speed. Holonews channels, initially filled with panic and reports of a devastating Separatist attack, quickly pivoted to images of Cal, a blur of red and blue, single-handedly dismantling gunships and disarming Dark Lords. His identity, once a whispered rumor, was now broadcast across the galaxy. The Coruscant anomaly was given a new name by the grateful citizens, the Sentinel of Coruscant, the Invincible Protector, or simply Cal. The Jedi Council, humbled by the sheer power and undeniable heroism of Cal, shifted their stance dramatically. The debate was no longer about containment, but about understanding and, tentatively, alliance. Master Windu, always a proponent of direct action, grudgingly admitted his power is undeniable, his intent, for now, appears benevolent. We cannot fight him, and it seems he will fight for us. Yoda, sensing the disturbance in the Force less as a threat and more as an unexpected element of balance, stated, "A new path the Force has chosen. Adapt we must." They extended an official invitation for Cal to join them, not as a Jedi, but as an allied protector, a unique champion of the Republic. Palpatine, however, was incandescent with rage. Dooku's failed attack, meant to destabilize the Jedi and highlight Cal as an uncontrollable menace, had instead forged a nascent alliance between the mysterious alien and the Jedi. His subtle machinations to sow fear were momentarily overshadowed by widespread awe and gratitude. But Palpatine was a master manipulator. He immediately began weaving a new narrative, praising Cal as a potent, if primitive, weapon, subtly suggesting that such power needed firm Republic, meaning his control, not the naive guidance of the Jedi. Project Chimera was accelerated, now focusing on finding weaknesses, exploiting vulnerabilities, or even replicating Cal's power. Cal, after a brief and surprisingly candid discussion with the Jedi Council, agreed to a loose alliance. He made it clear he would not be bound by their codes or their hierarchy, but his moral compass aligned with the protection of life and the pursuit of justice. He was a force of nature, but one pointed, for now, in the direction of the light. He learned from the Jedi the tactical nuances of Force wielders, their foresight, their mind tricks, their ability to affect their environment in ways he could only achieve through brute force. He understood that while he was individually powerful, the collective, coordinated efforts of the Jedi, combined with Republic military might, formed a formidable, albeit conventional, force. The immediate consequence of this new alliance was a decisive shift in the Clone Wars. The Separatist offensive on Coruscant had been utterly repelled, and the momentum had swung back to the Republic. The Separatists, terrified by reports of the Invincible Man, began to avoid direct confrontations on high-value Republic worlds, opting for more clandestine hit-and-run tactics. But Count Dooku, smarting from his humiliation, was not so easily deterred. He understood that Cal was a pure physical threat, a being of unimaginable strength and speed. He needed a countermeasure, something that transcended conventional warfare. He initiated a daring, highly classified program, Project Shadowfall, focusing on dark side alchemy and ancient Sith rituals, not to create a super weapon, but to find a way to manipulate the very fabric of reality to bypass Cal's invulnerability. One of Dooku's first major attempts to counter Cal's influence came during a critical supply run to Christophsis, a crystal planet vital for Republic weapon production. A massive Separatist fleet, led by General Grievous himself, ambushed the Republic convoy. Republic cruisers under the command of Admiral Yularen were quickly overwhelmed by Grievous's superior numbers and aggressive tactics. The battle was turning into a rout, threatening to cut off the Republic's main supply of kyber crystals. Cal was dispatched, not with a squadron of starfighters, but on his own, a single point of red and blue streaking through the vacuum of space towards the embattled fleet. He flew, not in a ship, but unprotected, his body generating a kinetic field from his speed and willpower, allowing him to survive the harsh vacuum. He was a living starfighter, but one-armed with impossible power. He arrived like a supernova. The Separatist fleet, dozens of destroyers and frigates, was arrayed for battle. Grievous, observing from his flagship, the Malevolence, scoffed at the lone figure. "Send the buzz droids. Let's see how invincible he is against a million tiny bites." But Cal was faster. He didn't engage the buzz droids. He flew directly at the Malevolence, a ship renowned for its ion cannons and devastating firepower. Turbo laser batteries opened fire, a blinding barrage of energy. Cal weaved through them, not just dodging, but sometimes flying through. The weaker energy streams, their kinetic impact merely jolting him. He slammed into the Malevolence's bridge deflector shield, a visible ripple in the energy field. The shield held, but the entire colossal dreadnought shuddered violently, its bridge crew thrown from their stations. Grievous roared, "Full power to forward shields. Open all batteries on that organic." Cal then did the impossible. He pushed. With every ounce of his strength, he pressed against the Malevolence's deflector shield, his muscles straining, veins bulging. The energy field began to crackle, to distort, to bend inward. The ship groaned, its internal structure protesting. Alarms blared across the bridge, shields failing, structural integrity compromised. He wasn't just hitting the shield. He was overloading its projectors through sheer, focused kinetic pressure. Suddenly, with a final, monumental heave, the Malevolence Arpar's forward deflector shield shattered. The colossal dreadnought, exposed, reeled. Cal burst through the void where the shield had been, straight into the ship's exposed bridge, leaving a Cal-shaped hole in the view screen. Inside, Grievous ignited all 4 of his lightsabers, his eyes glowing with pure hatred. "You are just a brute, a mindless animal." Cal merely looked at him, his face grim. "I'm the nightmare of tyrants." Grievous lunged, a whirling dervish of 4 lightsabers, a spectacle of blades designed to overwhelm and dismember. Cal met him not with a lightsaber, but with his bare hands. He caught 2 of Grievous's blades, the superheated plasma burning against his palms. A pain more intense than any blaster bolt, but still not cutting. He felt the pure heat, the destructive force, and acknowledged it as a true threat. He then blocked a 3rd blade with his forearm, and with the incredible speed, disarmed Grievous of his 4th saber, snapping the mechanical arm at the wrist with a single, brutal twist. Grievous shrieked in mechanical fury, his metallic body sparking. He was losing. He was outmatched. Cal, learning from his past encounter with Dooku's force push, didn't give Grievous a chance to retreat. He unleashed a supersonic clap, an air-shattering shockwave that shattered the bridge's internal systems, threw Grievous against the wall, and left the cyborg stunned. Before Grievous could recover, Cal grabbed him, not with a killing blow, but with a deliberate, calculated action. He ripped Grievous's personal escape pod from its bay, literally tearing it from the ship's internal structure, and then hurled Grievous inside. He sealed the hatch with a blast of heat vision, and then, with a mighty throw, launched the escape pod into hyperspace, sending the general hurtling into an unknown sector of the galaxy. Grievous was defeated, not killed, but removed from the immediate conflict, his flagship utterly crippled. The Separatist fleet, witnessing the impossible destruction of their flagship and the defeat of their general by a single, unarmed being, broke ranks and fled. The Republic convoy was saved. Cal, hovering amidst the wreckage of the Malevolence, had not just won a battle, he had single-handedly reshaped the naval war, forcing the Separatists to face a new, terrifying reality. One man could destroy their entire fleet. Still watching across universes? Subscribe for more epic clashes. The stunning victory at Christophsis, where Cal single-handedly routed a Separatist fleet and humiliated General Grievous, sent reverberations across the entire galaxy. The Republic hailed him as a tactical genius and a weapon of unprecedented power. Recruitment surged, morale soared, and even the most cynical senators grudgingly acknowledged his undeniable impact. The Jedi, though still grappling with the sheer scale of his abilities, began to actively integrate him into their strategic planning, valuing his direct, decisive approach. They recognized that while he did not wield the Force, his unwavering moral compass and selfless courage were as potent as any Jedi Master's devotion to the light. Palpatine, however, saw the victory as a dangerous impediment to his grand design. Cal was becoming too popular, too effective, too much of a symbol of hope that could unite the galaxy against a future empire. He couldn't be controlled, and therefore he had to be eliminated. Project Chimera was pushed into overdrive, focusing not just on weaknesses, but on weaponizing an individual capable of matching Cal's might. He also subtly leaked information about Cal's alien nature, hinting at unknown origins and potential hidden agendas, trying to rekindle the fear of the unknown. Count Dooku, recovering from his forced hyperspace journey, was consumed by a cold fury. His defeat by an unarmed brute was an affront to his Sith training and his aristocratic pride. He intensified Project Shadowfall, accelerating experiments into ancient Sith rituals and dark side alchemy. He sought a way to not merely fight Cal, but to unravel him, to exploit a fundamental flaw in his existence or even his connection to the very fabric of the universe. Dooku believed that such power, alien to the Force, must have an equally alien vulnerability. The new status quo was fragile. Cal was a guardian, but a solitary one, bearing the weight of galactic expectations. His presence accelerated the Clone Wars in unexpected ways. Separatist forces avoided open conflict, resorting to sabotage, assassinations, and psychological warfare. They adapted, trying to find a threat that Cal couldn't simply punch through or absorb. Cal, in turn, learned from every encounter. He understood that while his physical invulnerability was almost absolute, his human emotional core, his sense of justice, could be exploited. He also recognized that the sheer scale of galactic conflict meant he couldn't be everywhere at once. The Jedi helped him prioritize, focusing his efforts where he could have the most impact, saving populations, disabling superweapons, neutralizing high-value targets. He began to operate more strategically, understanding the long game. One such critical mission arose. The Separatists had developed a new, devastating superweapon, the Dark Harvester, on the remote volcanic world of Mustafar. This weapon, powered by rare, unstable Sith crystals, was designed not just to destroy planets, but to siphon their life force, making them utterly barren, a dark side mirror to Cal's life-giving solar energy. The intelligence came from a daring Republic infiltration, but the team reported that the Harvester was guarded by an experimental shield generator specifically designed to deflect any form of energy, including conventional weaponry and, terrifyingly, even concentrated force attacks. It was hypothesized to be a countermeasure for Cal's heat vision and energy absorption. The Jedi Council debated. Sending a fleet would be suicide against the shield. A direct force assault would be useless. Only Cal can penetrate such a defense, Mace Windu finally concluded, if his physical power can overwhelm it. Cal flew to Mustafar alone, a single blue and red streak against the planet's ominous, fire-scorched atmosphere. The planet itself was a hellscape, rivers of molten lava, volcanic ash, clouds obscuring a perpetually crimson sky. He located the Dark Harvester, a colossal, menacing spire embedded in a mesa, surrounded by a pulsating, shimmering shield. Dooku's Gambit, a defense designed to defeat the invincible man by making his primary offensive abilities useless. He hit the shield with the force of a full-speed meteor. The impact generated a deafening sonic boom, but the shield held, a ripple of shimmering energy rejecting his physical form. He slammed into it again and again, putting every ounce of his strength into breaching the barrier. He felt the immense counter-force pushing back, a resistance unlike anything he had encountered before. It was like trying to punch through solidified reality itself. His muscles screamed with exertion, but he would not yield. Then, from the depths of the Dark Harvester, a chilling, guttural roar echoed across Mustafar. A colossal creature emerged, not a droid, but a being of raw, dark side energy and twisted flesh. The Beast of Mustafar, a legendary creature from ancient Sith lore, now reanimated and amplified by Dooku's dark alchemy. It was a monstrosity of obsidian scales and razor claws, its eyes glowing with malevolent power, and around its neck a massive, crudely fashioned collar pulsed with dark side energy. This collar wasn't for control, it was a conduit, designed to draw upon the beast's primal dark side connection to Mustafar itself, amplifying its already monstrous strength. Dooku, watching from a hidden command center, observed with satisfaction. "The shield will wear him down," he cackled, "and the beast will finish him. Not even the invincible man can fight two insurmountable forces at once." Cal, still straining against the impenetrable shield, suddenly felt a tremor of ancient, raw power. He turned, his eyes narrowing. The beast of Mustafar lunged, its massive claws tearing through the volcanic rock. It was fast, imbued with an unnatural speed by the dark side. Cal flew to meet it, launching himself into the monster's path. He impacted with the beast, a collision that shook the very ground. He was not thrown, but the sheer mass and dark side augmented strength of the creature was immense. It was the first time he had truly felt a physical blow that carried genuine, crushing power. The beast swiped, its claws leaving deep gouges in the volcanic rock where Cal had just stood. Cal dodged, relying on his superior speed, but the beast was unnervingly quick. He punched the beast, a blow that would have leveled a building. The creature roared in pain, but its obsidian hide, infused with dark side energies, merely cracked, not shattered. It was more durable than any creature he had faced. The fight was a brutal dance between impossible strength and primeval, dark side-fueled might. Cal's punches landed with concussive force, but the beast's sheer resilience and the raw power radiating from it were draining. He tried his heat vision, but the beast's dark side aura seemed to absorb some of the energy, its scales glowing faintly as if feasting on the heat. He realized this was Dooku's masterpiece, a perfect counterattack, a shield immune to his range, and a creature designed to absorb his direct physical blows. Cal was being pushed to his absolute limits, forced to adapt his entire fighting style against a combination of threats unlike any he had ever encountered. The battle on Mustafar was not just a climactic confrontation, it was a test of everything Cal believed about his powers, and his legacy in this new galaxy was hanging in the balance. The battle on Mustafar was a symphony of destruction, a clash between raw cosmic power and ancient dark side malevolence. Cal, caught between the impenetrable energy shield of the Dark Harvester and the relentless onslaught of the Beast of Mustafar, found himself in a truly dire situation. Every punch he landed on the beast, a blow capable of leveling a skyscraper, merely cracked its obsidian scales, eliciting a guttural roar but failing to truly incapacitate it. The creature's speed, imbued with dark side energy, was a terrifying counterpoint to his own, forcing him to expend immense energy in evasive maneuvers. The shield, meanwhile, shimmered defiantly, a constant, glowing barrier that negated his heat vision and prevented direct access to the Dark Harvester. Cal realized that brute force alone would not suffice. Dooku had meticulously engineered this scenario to exploit the very nature of his power. He needed to think differently, to leverage the unique properties of his abilities in ways he hadn't before. He observed the beast's attacks, its reliance on raw force-augmented physical might, its connection to the dark side energies of Mustafar itself through the pulsating collar. He also noticed that while the shield blocked energy, it seemed to be a field, not a solid object. A massive claw swiped at him, tearing a chunk of the mesa's rock face where he had just been. Cal dodged, but felt the heat of the passing lava stream from the beast's impact. He needed to create an opening to disrupt this carefully constructed trap. He decided on a risky, unprecedented maneuver. He flew, not at the beast, not at the shield, but straight up. Accelerating with incredible velocity, blasting through Mustafar's dense volcanic ash clouds, higher and higher, until he was on the very edge of the planet's atmosphere, gazing down at the burning, scarred surface. He could see the faint outline of the Dark Harvester's shield, still holding. He knew what he had to do. He descended, not gradually, but like a living meteor. He tucked his arms to his sides, transforming himself into a streamlined aerodynamic projectile. He accelerated to speeds that defied physics, pushing past Mach 10, Mach 20, the very air around him superheating and ionizing. He became a flaming projectile, a controlled, guided re-entry burn. His target, a single, specific point on the shield generator gleamed from his X-ray vision, a subtle flaw in the energy field's projection matrix. The beast of Mustafar roared, sensing the immense energy converging, but it was too late. Cal hit the shield with an impact that dwarfed any of his previous attempts. This wasn't just physical force. This was physical force amplified by orbital velocity, a kinetic energy payload that defied conventional calculations. There was a cataclysmic implosion of energy, a blinding flash that momentarily eclipsed Mustafar's molten surface. The shield, designed to repel energy, buckled under the sheer, unimaginable physical pressure. It didn't just break. It shattered, exploding outward in a shower of brilliant, white-hot energy fragments. The force of the shield's collapse sent a seismic wave across the mesa, causing the very ground to crack and split. The beast of Mustafar, caught in the shield's concussive collapse, roared in pain, its scales momentarily flaring with dark energy, its connection to the planet briefly disrupted. This was Cal's chance. He burst through the now-gone shield directly towards the Dark Harvester. He wasn't focused on the beast now. His priority was the super-weapon. Dooku, watching in horror from his hidden bunker, screamed, "Impossible! No known force could break that shield!" Cal landed at the base of the Dark Harvester, the ground cracking under his feet. He could feel the weapon's sinister hum, draining life force from the planet's deep core. He knew he had limited time. The beast, recovering from the shield's collapse, lunged at him, its claws outstretched, its roars echoing like thunder. Cal met its charge head-on. This time, he didn't just punch. As the beast lunged, he launched himself into its open maw, not to be swallowed, but to penetrate its internal structure. He tore through its tough hide, his hands plunging into its dark side corrupted flesh, and with a guttural roar of his own, he ripped the pulsing dark side collar from its neck. The beast shrieked, a sound of pure agony, its raw connection to Mustafar severed. Its eyes dimmed, its movements became sluggish, and it began to revert, its dark side power draining away, leaving behind a less powerful, though still formidable, creature. With the beast neutralized, Cal turned to the Dark Harvester itself. He could see the intricate network of Sith crystals glowing with malevolent energy at its core. He didn't just hit it. He phased through its outer plating, using his enhanced molecular control, and plunged his hands into the very heart of the weapon. He felt the cold, siphoning power of the dark side, but it couldn't harm him. He exerted himself not with a destructive force, but with an unmaking force. He overloaded the crystals not by adding energy, but by rapidly absorbing and neutralizing their unstable, malevolent aura. The crystals pulsed violently, then shattered, imploding inwards, not with an explosion, but with a silent, internal collapse that caused the entire Dark Harvester to crumple into a mountain of inert, useless scrap metal. The life siphon mechanism died. The threat was ended. Dooku, witnessing the utter destruction of his super weapon and the neutralization of his beast, knew he was beaten, not by a fleet or a Jedi army, but by a single being. He fled Mustafar, his dreams of ultimate power thwarted, his arrogance shattered. Cal stood amidst the wreckage, breathing heavily, but victorious. He had faced his greatest physical challenge and emerged triumphant, not just through strength, but through a brilliant, adapted strategy. The Dark Harvester was destroyed. Mustafar's tormented life force, though scarred, would eventually begin to heal. The galaxy had witnessed a new level of heroism, and its status quo was forever changed by the presence of a truly invincible protector. The dust settled over Mustafar, both literal and metaphorical. Cal, the being once known only as the Coruscant anomaly, stood as the undisputed sentinel of the Republic, his impossible victory over the Dark Harvester and the Beast of Mustafar solidifying his legendary status. His presence had not just shifted the tide of the Clone Wars, it had fundamentally rewritten the rules of galactic engagement. The impact of Cal's power was immeasurable. He had introduced a new paradigm, a force unbound by the traditional mechanics of the Force or advanced technology. Planets, once considered lost to Separatist siege, were liberated with unprecedented speed. High-value targets, once considered impregnable, fell before his might. The Separatist Alliance, already reeling from Grievous's defeat, found their entire strategy crippled by a single, invincible warrior. Their dark side weapons and ancient beasts, their super droids and fleets, proved inadequate against a being who could absorb their energy, deflect their blades, and shatter their defenses with sheer physical will. Cal, in turn, had adapted to his new galaxy. He had learned the nuances of Force wielders, not by understanding the mystical, but by observing the tactical applications of their abilities. He understood the strategic value of his speed to intercept entire fleets, the protective capability of his invulnerability against weapons of mass destruction, and the sheer morale boost his presence brought to the beleaguered Republic. He became a symbol, a living embodiment of hope for the innocent and an unyielding dread for their oppressors. The clash of philosophies between his Kryptonian ideals and galactic ethics was profound. He adhered to a strict moral code, an unwavering belief in protecting life and ensuring justice, which sometimes put him at odds with the Republic's political maneuvering or the Jedi's more cautious, diplomatic approach. Yet his consistent actions spoke louder than any words, proving his dedication to peace. He did not seek to rule, only to protect, earning the grudging respect of even the most skeptical Jedi masters and the fervent admiration of the common people. The cost of victory, however, was also clear. Cal bore the psychological weight of being a solitary god in a galaxy of mortals. He was constantly vigilant, always on call, always the last line of defense. His presence, while a boon to the Republic, also exposed the galaxy's vulnerability, its reliance on a power that was not its own. The Jedi, while allied, could never fully comprehend him, and the chasm between their mystical wisdom and his alien science remained. His legacy was undeniable. The galaxy would remember the blue-caped figure who descended from the stars, a champion of impossible strength and unwavering will. He taught the Jedi that not all power flowed from the Force, and he taught the Republic that sometimes true heroism came from outside their understanding. The very concept of invincibility had been redefined. The battle for galactic freedom had found its greatest champion, a symbol of hope and a warning to tyrants everywhere. The war continued, but the outcome was no longer as uncertain. The galaxy had truly been transformed by his presence. And while the Jedi still pursued balance in the Force, they now knew that balance could manifest in ways they had never imagined.